control over it. Yeah, suffering happens because when the conditions are there, whether you want to or not, the I can say, I don't want it, I don't want it, it's still there. Yeah. So who has, actually Geshe-ma said something really, really, wow, it went straight in. I don't know if you heard when she said it, maybe she said it in German when she was translating his Dalam. You see, the only thing that has control is what? Or the only one, or the only thing that has control is what? Omnipotent. What? Who? What is omnipotent?
A Buddha.
Awareness.
Buddha is not omnipotent.
No, omniscient, yeah.
Omniscient, omnipotent. Huh?
The awareness.
The what?
Awareness.
Our?
Awareness.
Our awareness. No, our awareness is not omnipotent.
Only God, right?
Huh?
Only God.
Only God. No, karma.
Oh, yeah, well, it's the
Cause
Buddhist
and
God,
effect.
right?
Cause and effect. When the causes are there, the conditions are there, you can do whatever you want. The world will fall to pieces as long as we continue the way we continue. Climate warming will happen. If we don't stop the causes, world finished. This is how it is. So, but there is something that is omnipotent, and it's karma. Of course, not also, you can also reverse it by doing something about it, but when you don't do anything against the causes, that's it, you will have to resolve. Okay, so therefore, who has control over it? Our actions, yeah? Okay, 102. And being no inherent owner of suffering, there can be no distinction at all between that of myself and others. Thus I shall dispel it because it hurts. Why I am so certain that I shouldn't eliminate the sufferings of others. So again, he talks about himself. He talks to himself, kind of bringing that argument home. There's no inherent self and others. Mine and those pain, are they different? Simply then, since pain is pain, we'll dispel it. What grounds have you for all your strong distinctions? So, my children, so there's another reasoning to practice equanimity of self and others, the argument of emptiness. If everything is illusory, like an illusion, then why worry about non-existent suffering? Clever thinking, Shantideva might say. But if you weren't caught up in your stubborn sense of self, you'd understand the sameness of your pain. There's no difference between your pain and mine. In this way, he uses the emptiness argument not to refute, but to prove the necessity of compassion, and concludes, pain is just pain. I want to banish it. A nominally existing I will suffer from pain as long as it holds itself as really existing. If everybody is the same, then the justice would be that if I want to get rid of my own suffering, then it would be just to get rid of other suffering as well. Yeah, as we said, we're not just. We're just looking for ourselves. But I'm not saying you should now look for everybody. I'm not saying that. It's just to recognize, we want justice, but the way we use resources and all these kinds of things far too much, that's not just, if you want to talk about justice. And if I want to relieve my own suffering, it's just that I relieve the suffering of others. And I think I read it also somewhere, the level of the height of a society that works really well is to the extent that they can protect their weaker people. And the willingness to protect them. Then the society really flourishes when it's like that. And that we can see it goes out of the window, not just here, everywhere. It's I, me, and this and that. If I'm not, or then she said, or if I do not want to get rid of the suffering of others, I should also not want to get rid of my own suffering. Then that would be just, I say, okay, I leave others alone, then I also leave my own suffering, which we're not doing if you're in your right mind. Of course you want to relieve the suffering. Thus the suffering of everyone should be dispelled, and here there is no debate. To free myself from pain means free. All contrariwise, I suffer with the pain of beings. But since neither the suffering nor suffering joy, why should I turn away the misery of all? This is no ground for argument, for I prevent my own suffering, surely I should prevent the sufferings of all. If not, since I am just like other sentient beings, I should not prevent my own suffering either. That would be just. So I don't want to take care of your suffering, okay, then for justice sake, I'm not also relieving my own pain. But this is not logic, is it? I mean, we wouldn't do that. Does that kind of make sense? These are just arguments for your mind to see the self-cherishing and to see that the self-cherishing is not logic. Yeah, that's all. So this is just attitudes that we are developing here. Not then, when you're ready to do that, then you can do. The sorrow felt in pity aggregate, that's the 104th. But since this compassion will bring me much misery, oh, that's another argument, isn't it? Why should I exert myself to develop it? Should I contemplate the suffering of living creatures? How could the misery of compassion be more? It's true. When we look at the suffering of others, we feel miserable, isn't it? So what shall we do here? So Nahum is going,
Yeah, because it's because of karma.
uh-huh. And then?
So this is because if I see as a doctor somebody is suffering, it's out of causes and conditions that he got it. So I do feel, I understand, but on the other hand, I cannot change somebody's karma.
No, yeah, exactly. So that's good. So that's looking at it with wisdom eye, and then you don't feel miserable.
Yeah, because most doctors do, and I used to suffer a lot.
Yeah, right. So here he says, the one who doesn't want to look at the suffering of others, says, I have enough with my own suffering. This is what I thought. When I heard these things for the first time, I thought, gosh, I have enough to do with my own suffering. Why should I look at the suffering of all other beings without being able to do something about this? This is going to create more misery. But the argument here also is, you see, if we see somebody suffer and we can't do anything, what are you doing? What is your remedy?
I wish.
Yes.
It helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tonleng.
Huh?
Tonleng.
Tonleng, for example, that's very strong. But just the wish for them to be free from suffering. May you be free from suffering and causes of suffering. That's compassion. And maybe you heard about mental factors, positive ones and negative ones. Well, compassion is a positive mental factor. So it will never create more pain. It might hurt at the moment, but that's again your ego who can't bear it. And this is what we said also. If you feel it's too much to look at that person suffering, imagine how the person feels who has the suffering. I mean, who are you to then go, oh no, it's like it's just ego, because you can't do anything. Okay, you're right, yeah.
I just wanted to share, last night I used this in a discussion with Nomi in connection with the incident of settlers attacking soldiers who came to make peace in the areas. And I said, one who really believes in karma, can use it to ease the anger, because we know for sure that the attackers will suffer, and the victims, and she said, what about the victims? They're probably exhausting a bit karma, and they will feel relief. And a part of that, we usually pray for them. So we can use different things that we study for relevant cases in order to ease our tension.
Yeah.
And hopefully it works in time.
Well, if you do believe in karma, then I really think it helps, because then we still try to stop the other person if we can, but through, by not with anger and not with I have a right to harm them, I need to stop them, but with wisdom and with compassion. And especially with our own suffering. I mean, it's like, if I understand that I've created it myself, I mean, I can tell the story about the bed bugs, I mean, it is so typical because the thing is, we had bed bugs in the hotel in SMM, and I thought I had brought them in because I took a shawl from the Marsan and I put it as a pillow, I put it in the pillowcase, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt that I had been bitten, and I saw the bed bugs and I was convinced it came out of the shawl. And I thought, shit, if I bring bed bugs into a hotel, the Dharma friends of me, I would be held responsible for it. So for one night and one day, I was convinced it was me. I was not angry. I was kind of thinking, I know about bed bugs. I know that if I'm in the bed, I attract them, I can catch them, and I can take them out. By the way, if you do take them out, you, as the good Buddhist, don't throw them just out of the window. They come right back next night. You have to put them far away. I learned a lot about these things. But I saw my mind because one thing, I didn't want other people to suffer from this. That was the first one. Second, I took responsibility. And third, I wanted to do something about it, not blaming somebody else. I was convinced it came from the shores. The next night, the same amount of bed bugs, although the shawl's already gone. And then I thought, wait a minute. And then I started reading up in the internet. Bed bugs can only survive 4 to 5 months without food. So these shawls had been for 3 years. I thought, it's not me. Then I saw other mattresses standing outside. Then I knew it's the hotel. But I was not angry because I was happy it wasn't me. Because, no, the consequences could have been really grave. I tell you, because it's so difficult to get rid of them. And I started to have compassion for the hotel. Then I still had this crazy idea, I will be able to catch them all. And I spent a third night in that room because to attract them and to catch them and, say mantras, blow on them, put them out further away. And then the fourth night I gave up. And this is why I'm full of bites and they're still itching. So I had fantastic cleaning of negative karma. I understood so much that when even though the view that it's my responsibility, that totally changes the mindset. If I wouldn't have gotten these shawls, I would have understood from the beginning, this is the hotel, I would have gone, I want another room, blah, 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 So this is, when we understand karma, this is what happens. We act out of compassion because we understand that the other one will go through the same process. Yeah. So,
but at the end you told the hotel? Because,
of course.
Someone have to tell them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we did. Of course.
Because
But they
it's
knew.
not only what you see
But
there,
they
hundreds more, millions more
they
in
knew.
the
They
mattress.
knew because this is what I
they
mean.
knew.
They knew because the mattresses were outside from the other rooms also. They must have known, and also the way that he was when you told the guy at the reception, he said, "Okay, I'll tell the manager." It wasn't like, "Oh wow," because you're shocked as a hotel when somebody comes and says you have bed bugs. So, yeah, we told them, of
They
course.
were waiting for the Buddhists to take them out.
This I didn't say that I took them. But for me was I had the because in India I was usually able to catch them all and take them out, and then that was it. But then I also knew there weren't that many, so as you say, there can be a lot of them. It's very difficult to get rid of them. They might have to close this area off. So they will have to, yeah. But so, as Leora says, when we understand karma, then we know, also what Gajin Rinpoche said at one point, if somebody cheats you, if somebody steals from you, it is somebody from the past coming to collect the bill that you haven't paid properly. So if we really trust karma, of course you don't have to let others cheat you and all that because they create the same karma. But when we go with it, trying to do something about the cheating or stealing, it will be in a different attitude. Yeah, knowing that I have created it. But that's difficult. Usually we're so innocent and it's always other people and, like this. So also here, this is from Birgit, when she said, you see this whole thing about caring about others and being concerned about others. Everybody who is in a caring profession, as a patient, I have an attitude, they should care about what I feel. So, you know, why is it only the people who are in a caring profession? Why can't we start to develop that in ourselves, that we should have this caring attitude towards all others? And not be afraid, you know, a doctor can't say, oh, I have a caring attitude towards every patient, but now I had like 10 patients today, now it's enough. Please, no, not today. I'll be overwhelmed, I have too much suffering. Where it says, this compassion will bring me much misery. Real compassion doesn't bring you misery. Yeah, real compassion is you know the causes, you know it can end, it's a positive mental factor, you will feel much stronger. So definitely there is a benefit looking at the suffering of others, even if it makes you feel a bit uncomfortable. The Dalai Lama always says, looking at the suffering of others, it shows you have courage, because you could look away.
That's nice.
Yeah. Your own suffering, you have to bear it, you can't look away. But suffering of others, you can look away. And it needs courage. It needs courage. But don't take too much responsibility that you will be able to do something about this or whatever. Also, Mathieu Ricard, that some of you might know, because now one talks about compassion and empathy. Empathy is just feeling what the other goes through. Compassion is actively doing something. So he said, just empathy can throw you into depression because you never do something. So that's why you should, you know, if it's just empathy, try to do something actively to relieve, maybe not the suffering of that person because it's too big, but somebody else. So you feel the result of being able to do something. Otherwise you get, it's a good point actually. Maybe psychologists, they kind of know that.
And he taught us something in German, but don't go home with the shoes.
Yeah, right, exactly. So like, it means like knowing what compassion means like knowing what it is to be in the shoes of that person, but the shoes are not yours. You have to give them back. You don't take these shoes home with you. Yeah, you give them back. You have your own life, so you don't need to carry these things home with you. You can leave it in your clinic. That's where they belong. And otherwise too much ego involved, and then you start to feel low and all this. Okay, 105. If one person's suffering, the suffering of many would be destroyed. Surely kind-hearted people would accept it for the sake of themselves and others. Okay. So here he still, I think, speaks about the one above, who says, if I look at the suffering of others, I will feel depressed. Okay, so you will feel depressed. But this is just one person who feels depressed. But this looking at the suffering of others, it will nourish your bodhicitta. So if it nourishes your bodhicitta, then you can inspire others also to, you know, when you're Buddha, to do this. So the suffering of many can be destroyed through that. Or maybe also, you know, I'm just fantasizing here a little bit. If I look at the suffering of others, one person suffer, but by looking at the suffering of others, many, I might be able to find a remedy. If I look at their suffering, who knows? If I'm not looking, I cannot help them. Does that make sense? Like, for example, you know, I'm such a blah, 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 I'm talking all the time and telling stories and all this. And maybe somebody hears, there's somebody else who needs that because I saw it and I tell it, and somebody who has the skills can go and help. And this is how, because me looking, making me feel miserable, making me feel moved to tell the story, but I don't have the skills to help. Somebody hears it, and the suffering of many can be relieved. That can also be short-term, a bit like that, but long-term, I think compassion is part of the Buddha's path. I will attain enlightenment, then the suffering of many can be relieved. Surely kind-hearted people would accept it for the sake of themselves and others. Because looking away but knowing that there is suffering, that is really not helping. it doesn't make us happy just looking away and wanting to ignore. And it doesn't solve any problems. Look, I'm just going on, and so if you kind of want to say something, even Das, what's his here? Das the Bodhisattva, Supusha Chandra, although aware of harm the king would cause him, accepted his own suffering in order to eradicate the miseries of many. Okay, so it's a Bodhisattva, it's from the Chattakata tales, I think. These are the stories of the Buddha's lives before he was a Buddha. So he was many lifetimes. He was a king, he was an elephant, he was a rabbit, he was a hermit somewhere, you know, all these stories. So at one point, this one, Bodhisattva Supusha Chandra, he knew that there were people there who would be ready to listen to the Dharma. But he also knew there's a king who did not want to have any Dharma in that area, and that he would get killed. Still he went, he taught the Dharma, people started practicing, he got killed. Atisha who went to Tibet, he was asked to come to Tibet, he knew, like clairvoyance and some appearances of Tara, I think, that he would shorten his life. He still went because he saw the benefit. So this is, you know, we can take these beings as example, and then we're not masochists, and don't want to damage ourselves, but we do as best as we can. And you know, in the Chattakata tales, the Buddha is giving his body many times. But then he was already an Arya Bodhisattva also. So this is what my Guru always told us: don't give your body when you know after you regret it. Yeah, I think I told you the story. There's Milarepa also. He was disturbed by spirits in his cave. Yeah, and then he did a lot of wrathful pujas to chase them away and all this. Nothing worked. And then he thought, okay, I must have harmed these beings in the past. You know, you can, every time you get harmed by insects or by human beings or by whatever, you can think, okay, somebody's coming to claim the bill here, you know, that I haven't paid. So then you can pay, and then that's it, finished. So I can get depressed about these bites, or I can think, yeah, great. It would have ripened anyway at one point, somehow. So yeah, I just need to finish this, because otherwise I forget the point, which I have already kind of forgotten. Because with giving the body. So we just give whatever we can give, but maybe ask a question, then the point will come back.
So Laura, but I'm going between us. I apologize for my question. This, what you said now arose me the question that I thought that I was thinking during the morning.
Mm-hmm.
That understanding, if I understand right, understanding emptiness is easier than having this compassion, because this Supusha Chandra could do what he does, I think, or as you said about
maybe
after understanding that his body is not what we think our body is. Also, I remember that the Dandula, when he was here a few years ago, he taught 2 courses, one on compassion and one on wisdom. Mm-hmm. And he started with wisdom, saying that this is the easiest part. And although we are taught that they go together,
they have to go
all
together.
The time, and also thinking about the Theravada or the hearers or Arhat, they understand emptiness. It takes them time to be bodhisattvas and to have bodhicitta, absolute bodhicitta.
Yeah.
Still, if this is what my
Look,
limited understanding.
I'm telling you that Supusha Chandra was an Arya Bodhisattva in order to warn you not to go too steep. Not to go too steep for that reason. I think that you don't think now you have to be like him. But I know people who are not Buddhists who sacrifice their life for the life of others. I haven't heard about emptiness ever, these people. No, I don't agree with you that you have to have realized emptiness. Of course, when you have realized emptiness, then everything is quicker. But they say, in order to realize emptiness, you need a lot of merit. It's not an intellectual thing only. You also need a lot of merit, which then you create by doing this. But this is what I'm saying, not giving. If you want to give your life, by all means do, but really think like Geshe Dawa always said, is like, you can be, think you're a Bodhisattva, you see a mosquito falls into the river, you can't swim, you kind of jump after the mosquito to save him and you drown. What's the point? Yeah. Again, if you want to give, like he gave his body, not just for anything, but for people to be then able to practice the Dharma, so that makes a lot of sense, right? Even if he hasn't realized emptiness, but there are ordinary beings who sacrifice their life, who give their life. Yeah, so I don't know. But of course, realizing emptiness, but it comes together. We really have to practice both sides. This is why at the end we always dedicate Medhi, who doesn't exist from its own side, quickly attain enlightenment, who doesn't exist from its own side, in order to lead all sentient beings who do not exist from their own side, to that state by myself alone. So, 107. Now it's the advantages of this practice. Okay, now I have to do, what is the advantage of it? Must be some advantage. 107. Thus, because he loves to pacify the pains of others, he whose mind is attuned in this way would ever enter even the deepest hell, just as a wild goose plunges into a lotus pool. I wonder if that you have to realize that when you know that you can help, you have the confidence in karma, you know that it will be beneficial to do it. I wonder if you really need emptiness on top of it. Again, very ordinary things. Remember a very difficult thing you had to do, but you were able to help. So it was a lot of effort, but somehow it was effortless.
Because it brings happiness.
Because?
It brings happiness.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of the happiness, it seems that
not
effortless.
Not even the happiness, because the willingness to do it. Because there's this willingness to what? To repay the kindness of others. That goes with bodhicitta. It's one very important point. I received so much kindness, directly and indirectly. I want to repay that kindness. You find an occasion to do it, even if it's something you don't like to do, even in an ordinary way, you do it happily. I discovered this in this 100 year, as a homeless person, kind of cleaning people's houses and all this. I usually don't like to clean, but yeah, that it comes effortless. But again, at our level, not too big. Not totally forgetting yourself, but this will be the advantage of this practice. That all the even going to the deepest hells, we will plunge into the deepest hells, just as a wild goose plunges into a lotus pool. I can't think of any example now. Can you think of some example that somebody does something very difficult? Yeah, people go to the army, like with a lot of joy, thinking they're doing something beneficial. I'm not saying it's good, I'm just talking about attitude. It's dangerous what they're going to do, but they go with a lot of joy, at the beginning at least. Yeah? So I'm not saying it's good.
When the corona just started, and we had to take...
Good. Thank you. Do you remember these people who had to, the doctors, the nurses, they were exposed to these viruses. No vaccines, nothing. Nobody knew how it would develop. And many of them, they didn't complain. They just did it. Yeah, thank you. Exactly. We have plenty of examples of people who do something happily because they chose to do these things. It's all about voluntarily doing, not feeling like it's my duty to do, but I want to do this. And then if, as a Buddhist, you want to do this, why? Because it brings you enlightenment. Not just to help the people, but it brings you enlightenment.
Anila, it is said that, in continuation to what Liora said, that you need merit to realize wisdom because it loosens the self-grasping attitude. So it's kind of a must on the way to directly realize it, not like only analytically, intellectually.
Yeah, in the head we have understood it very quickly, but it's still there. This is the problem. Intellectually it's easy to understand that things do not exist the way that they appear. But then if we really want it to go away, we have to have direct perception. should have brought the spider. You remember the spider, like with this hologram? Maybe I'll bring it. No, I can't bring it tomorrow. Maybe bring it for the last on the 29th. There's an optical illusion.